Welcome, dear listener. Take a deep breath, and let it out slowly. You're here now, safe and calm. Let the gentle rustling of history soothe your thoughts. Tonight, we journey far away to a sun-warmed world, where white columns line winding stone paths, and the scent of olive groves lingers in the air. This is not a history lecture, nor a tale of heroes or wars. This is the soft story of daily life. Of people in sandals walking slowly along quiet courtyards. Of cool clay cups filled with sweet wine, and lazy afternoons beneath fig trees. You're about to step into the tranquil world of leisure. In ancient Greece. Let your mind float. Let the day fade. And let us begin. The sun has just risen above the hills of Attica. Its golden light creeps down whitewashed stone homes, glinting on terracotta roofs. In the quiet courtyards of Athens, the day begins not with urgency, but with rhythm. Slow and thoughtful. A clay water jar is lifted, poured gently into a shallow basin. The splash echoes lightly against marble walls as a young man washes sleep from his face. Nearby, an older woman stirs a pot of barley porridge over a low fire, the scent mixing with faint jasmine from the garden. In this world, leisure is woven into daily life, not something to be earned, but something to be honored. The ancient Greeks called it skol, a word that would one day become school. But to them, it meant more than study. It meant time to think, to reflect, to converse with others, and to live slowly. The agora, the open marketplace, is still quiet. A dog stretches in the shade of a column. A pair of young boys toss a leather ball made from stitched goat bladder. Their laughter is soft, carried by the warm morning breeze. Life begins gently in Athens. Later in the morning, near a shaded colonnade, an elderly man sits with his students beneath a canopy of vines. The air smells of ripe grapes and distant time. This is a common scene in Athens, leisure spent in dialectic, in calm conversation. The man speaks slowly, and the students listen, not hurried, not distracted. Their robes rustle gently in the breeze as they sip watered wine from ceramic cups. Ideas float between them like leaves in the air. To the ancient Greeks, the pursuit of wisdom was not a luxury. It was part of a life well lived. And leisure meant time to think deeply. This is not school as we know it. There are no schedules, no bells. Just questions and silence. And answers that unfold like petals, softly. By midday, the sun rests high in the sky. But down by the water's edge, the sea breeze is cool and constant. Children chase each other along the beach, their sandals kicked off, the wet sand clinging to their toes. Fishermen hum quietly as they repair their nets, each knot a rhythm known by memory. And in a shaded inlet, a man in a small wooden boat drifts lazily, one hand trailing in the clear water. To the Greeks, the sea was a companion. And leisure could be solitary too. Time spent with waves, with thoughts, with the sun on one's shoulders. Lunch is simple, olives, figs, cheese, and bread softened in wine. There is no rush. The sea will be here tomorrow. As the sun begins to slope westward, the city stirs again. Citizens gather near the great theater carved into the hillside. It's time for a play, perhaps a comedy by Aristophanes, light and full of mischief. Or a quiet tragedy, slow and thoughtful. The stone seats are warm from the day's sun. People settle in, cloaks wrapped lightly around their shoulders. They laugh, softly, at familiar lines. The chorus moves in practiced harmony. Here, art and leisure blend, watching stories under the open sky. The Greeks believed in balance. Laughter and sorrow, thought and feeling. And leisure was the space where all of these could bloom. As evening drapes the city in soft lilac, the streets glow with lamplight. In a corner of the agora, two old friends play a game of Bedtime, an early version of chess or checkers. Their fingers move the pieces slowly, with practiced ease. A boy nearby plays the aloes, a twin-piped flute, its soft notes winding between columns like mist. Others stroll in quiet groups, men and women talking of ideas, of crops, of poems. Leisure does not end with the day. It simply slows further, like the breath before sleep. In homes across the city, lamps are lit. Bread is shared. Children curl up on mats under woven blankets. The moon rises slowly, glowing above the Acropolis. Night settles fully, and the city falls into stillness. Only the distant sound of crickets and the rustle of olive branches in the wind remain. Some sit under the stars, talking quietly, sipping from clay cups. Others lie back on rooftop terraces, eyes on the constellations, stories written across the sky. The Greeks had names for them all. And in the silence of night, stories flowed freely. From lips to ears, from stars to hearts. Leisure was not escape. It was living well. Living gently. Living slow. As you lie here now, breathing slowly, perhaps you can feel a little of their peace. The hush of a world long past, where even the gods, at night, would rest. You've reached the end of this first chapter. There's more to come. But for now, let your thoughts drift. Let the rhythms of old sandals on warm stones, and the whisper of fig trees in the breeze, guide you softly to sleep. Good night, traveler of time. And sleep well. Far from the stone streets of Athens, beyond the walls and the watchful eyes of marble statues, the land begins to soften. Rolling hills covered in wild thyme, winding dirt paths that lead to olive groves, and small white homes scattered like seashells along the countryside. This is where leisure breathes deeper, where the pace of life stretches, like a cat in the sun. A donkey plods gently down a rocky road, its hooves clicking against the earth. Behind it, an old man hums a slow song, leading it toward a quiet vineyard. Overhead, swallows dip and rise in the warm, late morning air. In these villages, time doesn't move by hours. It moves by sunlight, by the angle of the shadows, by the ripening of grapes, and the sound of a neighbor's flute. At the edge of a hill, vines grow in neat, twisting rows. Dark grapes swell gently under the sun, warmed from above, cooled from the earth. Among the vines, 3 workers move slowly, not rushing, never shouting. One whistles a tune as he ties up a fallen branch with twine. A little way off, beneath a fig tree, a woman sits with a clay jug of wine beside her. She watches the scene, fanning herself with a leaf, lost in quiet thought. This is not a time of work. It is a pause between tasks. A moment for shade, for taste, for quiet. Lunch is shared under a canopy of woven reeds. Soft goat cheese wrapped in grape leaves. Honey-soaked walnuts. Fresh bread dipped in olive oil. Wine, diluted with cool water, poured from a terracotta pitcher. The talk is gentle. A joke here, a proverb there. Nothing urgent, nothing sharp. Only the slow rhythms of contentment. In the countryside, gymnasiums were not great marble halls. They were open places, shaded by tall plane trees, close to a stream. Young men exercised not for glory, but for balance, of mind and body. Here, in a sandy clearing, a group trains slowly, running laps barefoot, feet padding against packed earth. Lifting stones not for show, but for strength. And afterward, resting on a long wooden bench, wiping sweat with linen cloth. Beside them, an older man speaks, not a trainer, but a philosopher. He reminds them that true health is found in quiet discipline. And that the body, like the mind, must not be pushed, but understood. Leisure here is not laziness. It is purposeful calm. They finish with wrestling, not brutal, but measured, respectful. And then, the soft sound of the stream nearby invites them to bathe. As the sun dips toward afternoon, The olive groves glow golden. In one grove, a gathering begins, not loud, but thoughtful. Villagers bring instruments, the kithara, the lyre, the aloes. A boy plucks the lyre softly, testing a melody. His sister hums beside him, her voice quiet like wind through trees. An old man begins a slow recitation of a poem. Not dramatic, but familiar, like lullaby. People gather in circles, leaning against tree trunks, sipping watered wine. Children lie on the grass, drawing shapes in the dust with sticks. The music swells, then fades. The silence between notes is just as sacred. For the Greeks, music wasn't only performance. It was medicine for the soul. A kind of shared dreaming. And in the countryside, it belonged to everyone. Every year, as the barley ripens and the wind carries dust from the fields, villages pause for the quietest of festivals, the harvest of Demeter. There is no loud procession. No great feasts. Just woven wreaths of grain placed on doorways. Offerings of bread and olives left at small rural shrines. And a peaceful afternoon where work stops, and people simply rest. Families sit outside their homes, grinding new grain slowly with stone. Children paint on pots with crushed berries. A traveling bard walks from village to village, sharing soft songs of the gods. This kind of festival is leisure in its most sacred form. A communal breath. A time to say, we have enough. As night falls, the hills darken into gentle silhouettes. Inside a simple stone house, a fire crackles softly. A grandmother stirs lentil soup in a wide clay pot. Nearby, a father tells stories to his sleepy children. His voice slow and low, like the coals beneath the flame. The windows are open. The stars blink quietly through them. A single oil lamp flickers. The scent of lavender, tucked beneath pillows, rises into the air. Here, leisure is not planned. It is lived. And night is not something to fill, but to embrace. In the quiet of the countryside, the evening brings not wild parties, but something far softer. The rural symposium, a gathering of friends, family, and neighbors in candlelit rooms or open courtyards. There is wine. Yes. But it is not for indulgence. It is for opening the heart. For soft conversation. And sometimes, gentle song. A host brings out low wooden tables. Clay cups are placed with care. Everyone reclines on pillows and woven mats, their feet bare, robes loosened. The wine is diluted with cool water from a well, poured slowly into painted crauters. And then the talking begins, stories of past harvests, of old loves, of strange dreams. One guest plays the kithara, another recites verses from memory. A young boy falls asleep in his mother's lap as his uncle tells tales of Persephone and springtime. The stars rise as cups are refilled, slower each time. And laughter fades into silence. This is leisure not for the body, but for the soul. While public life in Greece often favored men, rural homes held their own gentle worlds. And women, too, had their leisure. In a courtyard shaded by fig trees, a circle of women gathers with baskets of wool. They spin, they weave, not in haste, but in rhythm. Each thread a breath. Each movement a poem. As they work, they speak of births, of songs their mothers taught them, of weather and dreams. Children play nearby, but the women do not chase or scold. They glance with soft smiles. And go on weaving. On festival days, they offer honey cakes to Artemis. They sing hymns to Demeter, their voices hushed like wind in barley. Their leisure is hidden, quiet, sacred. Woven into the very cloth they make. Not all festivals were wild. Even the god of wine, Dionysus, was honored in calm ways among the hills. In the spring, when vines showed their first leaves, villagers would hold a rural Dionysia. Not with shouting, but with music, dancing, and storytelling. Elders wore masks of painted clay and acted out quiet comedies. Children sang choruses with reed flutes. And travelers brought tales of cities far away, told by firelight. At dusk, grapes were pressed gently in wooden tubs. The juice stained bare feet, and everyone laughed. Not loudly, but deeply. At night, poems were whispered to the stars. The god was not summoned with noise, but invited with joy. In the stillness of summer nights, when the full moon hung heavy and low, villagers would walk in silence to a grove dedicated to Artemis, goddess of wild places and peace. They brought simple offerings, fresh herbs, spring water in small jugs, loaves of bread wrapped in cloth. No torches, just the moonlight. There, in the grove, a priestess read slow verses. And the people sat on the earth, breathing deeply, letting go of sorrow, inviting quiet. Sometimes, they sang, barely above a whisper. Other times, they simply listened to the wind and the leaves. Even children sat still here, because they knew this place was made for dreams. After the last sheaves of barley are cut, and the tools are put away, the fields are left to rest. So are the people. A family walks slowly across golden stubble, hands linked. They do not speak much. They feel the stillness. A young girl finds a feather in the dirt and keeps it. An old man sits on a rock, looking toward the hills. He's seen 70 harvests, but this one was the gentlest. They lay a blanket on the ground and eat slowly. Cold lentils, goat cheese, dried figs. The meal is humble, but it is enough. This is the leisure of completion, of letting things be. To the ancient Greeks, Hypnos, the god of sleep, was not a joke or escape. He was sacred, a brother of death, and yet also a healer. Sleep was seen as a gift, a time when the soul wandered freely, when dreams brought messages, and when the body gently repaired. Beds were simple, woven mats, soft wool blankets, lavender tucked inside pillows. People drank warm goat's milk with honey before lying down. They said soft prayers, not long, not loud, just thanks for the day. And then, they let go. Let go of thought. Let go of breath. Let go of time. And drifted softly into the gentle night. You've now walked the quiet fields, sat beneath olive trees, listened to lyres and stories under stars, and learned the gentle rhythm of ancient Greek leisure. The countryside, its soft colors, its patient hours, offered peace to everyone, the young, the old, the busy, the thoughtful. And now, as this part ends, you may feel it too. That soft, timeless hum of being exactly where you need to be. Sleep well, traveler of time. The guides are watching kindly from the stars above. The story of Greek leisure cannot stay on land for long, because Greece is not only cities and hills. It is sea. Endless, glimmering sea. The Aegean stretches like a slow breath between the mainland and the islands. Soft blue in the morning, golden at dusk. And so, we find ourselves here, aboard a small wooden boat. The sail billows gently with the wind. The oars creak softly as they dip in and out of the water. A single gull cries overhead. Then the world is silent again. There is no hurry. The sea is calm. A man hums as he guides the tiller, eyes half-lidded, sun on his shoulders. This is a ferry, not a warship. It carries wine, olives, and sometimes passengers seeking the quiet of island life. The wind smells of salt and thyme. The wood of the boat is warm to the touch. Everything is still. The boat lands on the small island of Delos, or perhaps Naxos. It does not matter. Each island holds the same sacred hush. The same low hills, dusted with herbs. The same goats dozing beside stone steps. Here, the villagers move slowly. Children play with clay toys in the shade of old walls. Fishermen mend nets with careful fingers. Elders sit under fig trees, speaking little, watching clouds. An old woman sweeps her doorstep, humming the tune her mother once sang. Her hands know the rhythm. The broom knows the stone. There is no clock here. Only the light. In this world, leisure is not separate from living. It is part of the breath, part of the walk. Baked into the bread. And folded into each linen sheet hanging to dry. Down at the harbor, time slows even further. A fisherman named Theophilus sits on the dock. He's not fishing today. He has already caught enough. He's patching his net. Threading hemp through a torn section, one loop at a time. His boat rocks gently nearby. Salt crusts the wood. The ropes smell of seaweed. His feet are bare. His mind is quiet. A boy approaches with a question, and Theophilus just smiles and gestures for him to sit. He teaches the boy the knots. They don't speak much. They don't need to. The sun reflects in their eyes. And the net grows whole again. In the homes of islanders, the walls are thick and cool. The windows are small, shaped to catch the breeze. A clay jug of cool water sits in the shade, beads of moisture collecting on its sides. Inside, a woman prepares a simple meal. Barley bread warmed on a flat stone. Figs, peeled with calloused fingers. Goat cheese crumbled with care. Her daughter naps nearby, curled on the woven mat. The shutters are half closed. Light dances softly on the wall, filtered through vine leaves. Later, after eating, they will sit outside. Just sit. Perhaps they'll talk. Perhaps they won't. Sometimes leisure is not what we do. It's what we allow ourselves not to do. In the center of the village, near a grove of tall cypress trees, stands a small bathhouse. It is not grand, no marble lions or elaborate columns. Just smooth stones, a gentle spring-fed pool, and the echo of dripping water. Villagers enter quietly, wrapping themselves in simple linen cloths. They rinse slowly, pouring water over their shoulders from bronze ladles. There is laughter, but not loud, and conversation, but soft. Some scrub their feet and hum old melodies. Others sit near the steam, breathing deeply, eyes closed. This is no place for vanity. It is for cleansing. For quiet joy. For soft healing of the muscles and the mind. When they leave, they smell of rosemary. And they walk a little lighter. Beyond the village, tucked into a forested hillside, lies a sanctuary. Not a temple of gold, but a grove, a garden, and a place for dreams. This is the Asclepion, the sanctuary of Asclepius, god of healing. And here, people come not to be cured quickly, but to rest, to sleep, to dream deeply. Patients lie on soft beds and shaded porticos. They listen to flowing water, bird song, the breeze through trees. Priests walk gently, barefoot, speaking only when needed. At night, the sick sleep in the abaton, a sacred hall. They wait for dreams to bring guidance. And they believe that Asclepius visits them quietly, in sleep, touching their body, or whispering a cure. No herbs. No sharp tools. Just peace. In the Asclepion, sleep is the highest form of rest. And the priests treat it not as something passive, but something divine. Each night, a man named Diodorus lies down on a woven cot. He places an olive branch beneath his pillow. He closes his eyes as a priest chants slowly from across the room. The stars blink above through the open roof. And a breeze moves through the sacred space like lullaby. Diodorus breathes deeply. His body sinks. And as he drifts, he dreams of a serpent, golden and warm, coiling gently around his leg. When he wakes, the pain in his knee is gone. He tells the priest, The priest smiles and says, "Then Asclepius has visited you. You've now floated across seas, stepped through island paths, rested in healing gardens, and slept beneath the eyes of the gods." In the quiet of the Asclepian, dreams are not just dreams. They are messages. And the most sacred symbol is the serpent. Not feared, but honored. Not hidden, but welcomed. In one chamber, a woman named Anthe lies still. She has come from far away, hoping for healing. She fasted for 2 days, bathed in spring water, and now she sleeps under the stars. Her dream comes gently. She sees a white snake slithering beside her, its tongue flicking, its body cool. It does not frighten her. Instead, she feels warmth in her chest. When she wakes, her breathing is easier. She weeps softly. Not in fear, but in gratitude. The priest records her dream with careful symbols on a wax tablet. He does not rush. He does not question. He simply listens. Each morning in the sanctuary begins the same way. Soft footsteps on stone. The smell of crushed herbs burning gently in clay bowls. And quiet voices, sharing dreams. Patients gather near the altar. Not to worship, but to understand. A priest listens. He tilts his head. And he speaks not in certainty, but in suggestion. "A snake is not always a snake," he says. "Sometimes it means rebirth. A cup in the hand may mean health returned. A cave in the dream may show where fear lives. There are no judgments. Only soft wisdom, spoken like lullaby. A reminder that dreams are the soul's own language, and healing is not always of the body." Elsewhere in the village, beyond the sanctuary, even among the simplest homes, sleep is treated with reverence. A child brushes olive oil on his arms before bed, not for vanity, but for softness. His grandmother combs his hair with slow strokes, and tells a story, not of monsters, but of the moon. "That moon is Selene," she whispers. "She rides her silver chariot across the sky, pulling night behind her like a blanket." The child listens with half-closed eyes. A clay lamp flickers beside them. A dog sighs at the doorway. Sleep comes like a tide. Soft, steady, complete. Not all lullabies have words. Some are just hums. Notes passed from mother to child, like bird song. In a small home near the edge of the village, a mother rocks her infant. She hums a tune she does not remember learning. Because she never did. It was always inside her. The child's breath slows. The hum continues. Outside, reeds rustle in the breeze. A lyre plays in the distance. Someone pours wine, slowly, on the steps of a small altar. Sleep belongs to everyone, the old, the young, the gods themselves. And lullabies are not only for children. Sometimes they are for the one singing. The Greeks did not fear death in the way we might imagine. For them, it was another form of sleep. A passing into stillness. Into memory. Into story. They buried their loved ones with care. A sprig of myrtle. A small cup of wine. A coin for Charon, the ferryman. But they also believed that the soul might rest in the meadow of asphodel, where it wandered softly, forever, without pain. Tombstones spoke gently. "Stranger, pass by, and remember me. Not beware. Not mourn. Just remember." Death was not an end. It was a sigh. And then, the silence after. And so we come full circle. From the gymnasiums and marketplaces of Athens, to the fig trees and vineyards of the countryside, to the salt winds of the islands, and now, to the final form of leisure, sleep that never ends. To the Greeks, to live well was to rest well. To rest well was to think gently. To think gently was to speak softly. And to speak softly was to remember that even the gods had their time to sleep. So now, as your eyes begin to close, let Serene guide you in her silver chariot. Let the breeze carry your breath out to sea. Let Hypnos cradle your thoughts in his arms. And let go. You've now walked slowly through the full arc of Greek leisure, not just of the body, but of the heart, and of the spirit. You've seen that leisure is not laziness. It is life lived without rushing. Life shared. Life remembered. And now, like the ancients, you too may rest. Sleep well, traveler. You've earned it. The sun rises slowly over Athens. It does not shout or blaze. It peaks, soft and golden, over the tiled rooftops, warming the courtyards, glinting on the dewdrops resting on fig leaves. Today is not an ordinary day. Today is a festival day. Not a day of wildness or noise, but of meaning, of gentle preparation, of sacred leisure. In the home of a modest family, the mother stirs early. She sprinkles barley on the hearth fire, not to cook, but to honor. The father cleans the family's small clay shrine to Hestia. The children help pick flowers from the hillside, delicate crocuses and soft anemones. There is no rush, no market to hurry to, no field to till. This is a day of pause. As the day unfolds, the city seems to breathe more slowly. In the agora, the usual clatter of trade is replaced by murmurs. People are gathering, but not to buy. They wear fresh linen. Some wear olive wreaths. Others hold baskets of fruit or folded cloth. The festival will begin with a procession. But there is no trumpet, no marching. Only the slow movement of neighbors, walking side by side, along roads dusted by morning breeze. Some carry offerings, small honey cakes wrapped in fig leaves. Others carry garlands of laurel or wine in clay jars. Even the animals move slowly today. A goat, led by rope, stops to nibble at a vine. No one minds. This is a day meant to slow, to soften, to remember the divine. By mid-morning, the procession reaches the temple. It is not a fortress. It is not intimidating. It is open, full of columns, birdsong, and clear air. The courtyard is swept. Statues are draped in fresh cloth. The altar is warm from the sun. One by one, the townspeople approach. They place their offerings. Not with fanfare, but with care. A woman kneels. She sets down a cake of barley and honey. Then, she touches the earth, and says a name. Not aloud. Just, to the wind. Behind her, a boy ties a strand of ivy to the temple gate. His grandfather stands nearby, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. The gods, it is believed, walk among the people on days like these. Not as flashes of lightning, but as gentle breezes. As the warmth on one's back. As the sun rises higher, some make their way to the theater. But not for loudness. Not for spectacle. For reflection. For togetherness. The theater of Dionysus, carved into the slope of a hill, holds hundreds. And yet, it is quiet. People sit on smooth stone benches, shaded by cloths. Children lean against their mothers. Old men close their eyes and hum the familiar songs. A play begins. But the voices are calm. Poetry floats through the air like smoke. The actors wear masks, not to hide, but to reveal something deeper. In Greek festivals, the theater is not distraction. It is sacred rest. A chance to feel the world from another's soul. After the play, there is food. But not feasting. Not indulgence. Just the joy of eating slowly. Under the trees. Families gather beneath an olive grove. Blankets are spread. Baskets opened. There are olives and cheese. Honey and sesame bread. Fresh figs, still warm from the sun. No music. No shouting. Only the crunch of bread. The whisper of wind through the branches. And the quiet laughter of cousins reunited. One elder pours wine into a clay cup. Then into another. And another. Not for drunkenness, but for sharing. The cups pass slowly, like time. As the sky turns rose-colored, the people return to the temple. They do not speak much. The hush of dusk seems to ask for silence. A small flame is lit at the altar. And then another. And another. The light spreads, not like a wildfire, but like the stars themselves, revealing slowly, softly. A priestess stands in white. She raises her hand, not in command, but in greeting. She recites a hymn, slow, ancient, and known to all. Some hum along. Some close their eyes. It is not the words that matter, but the rhythm. The calm repetition. Like waves lapping at the shore. In a quiet grove just outside the city, a different kind of festival is beginning. It is not public. And it is not loud. It is the Thesmophoria, a sacred gathering of women. Only women. They come with baskets on their heads. Some wear veils. They walk with slow steps, like a procession of prayers. They honor Demeter and Persephone, goddesses of grain, of seasons, of death and rebirth. For 3 days, the women sleep outdoors. They sing songs known only to them. They laugh. They cry. They whisper secrets into the earth. No men attend. No scribes record it. But it is remembered. In silence. In sisterhood. In the slow rhythm of stories passed from mother to daughter. On the second night of Thesmophoria, the women dig small pits. Into them, they place offerings. Grains, bits of old bread, dried myrtle leaves. They sleep nearby, on mats made of straw, under open sky. It is said that sleeping close to the soil brings fertility, not only of the womb, but of thought, of speech, of life itself. In the distance, the sounds of the city fade. Here, there is only the chirping of crickets, the gentle rustle of fabric, and the soft breathing of many bodies, resting together. Even in sacred duty, there is rest. And even in rest, there is sacredness. Far to the west, in the wide fields of Olympia, a different kind of stillness begins. Every 4 years, for over 1,000 years, the Greeks honored Zeus with games. But before the races, before the athletes, came something far more important. The sacred truce. The games themselves were not just about strength. They were about form, about grace, about pause. Wrestlers began by circling, not striking, but waiting, feeling. Runners stood still, toes at the line, eyes forward. No shouts, just breath. The crowd watched not as fans, but as witnesses. Even victory was quiet. A wreath of olive leaves. A nod. No gold. No anthem. Only the knowledge that something ancient had been done well, and seen, and remembered. The Greek year was not divided by months alone, but by moods, by seasons of rest and seasons of return. In autumn, people slowed, not just for the harvest, but for the quiet that followed. In winter, days were short. Fires burned longer. Homes felt smaller, and warmer. Time passed in wool spinning, in quiet prayers to Hestia, in olive oil massages, and slow bread baking. Leisure wasn't scheduled. It was woven into the year. A part of nature. The gods didn't rush. Why should mortals? For the ancient Greeks, time did not march forward. It turned. Like the moon. Like a wheel. Like a dance. Every festival would come again. Every name would be spoken again. Every rest would return. This gave life rhythm. Not pressure. Not urgency. A child's first festival would become her favorite memory. Then her child's. Then her grandchild's. Even in change, there was sameness. Even in chaos, there was pause. Even in forgetting, there was remembering. So, what is sacred leisure? It is not idleness. It is not escape. It is the time we give ourselves to connect, to breathe, to exist without needing to earn that existence, to sit with others, and with silence. The Greeks believed the gods watched how we rested, and smiled when we did so, with care, with meaning, with love. So if you are resting now, if your eyes are closing, if your mind is floating somewhere between olive groves and temple stones, know this: you are honoring something very old, and very, very human. You've now wandered through the sacred time of the Greeks. Not just how they rested, but how they wove rest into life. From hidden women's festivals, to olive grove picnics, to Olympic months of peace, every moment mattered. And now, as your breathing slows, as your own festival of sleep begins, remember, you are part of the same story. Still turning. Still sacred. Still soft. Sleep well. Evening settles over the village like a linen shawl. The shadows lengthen. The air cools. But in one corner of town, warmth still rises. It is the Balneum, the public bathhouse. It is not large or grand. Not marble and gold. Just a circular room with a clay furnace. A shallow pool of warm water. A stone bench. And soft steam curling toward the ceiling. People arrive slowly. Fathers with tired shoulders. Young men with sore legs. And elders who've come just to sit. They undress not with shame, but with simplicity. This is not a place to be seen. It is a place to let go. Anointing oil is passed hand to hand. Olive, thick and golden. They rub it gently into skin. Then scrape it off with a curved bronze drigil. Removing dust, sweat, worry. No one speaks loudly. Just murmurs. Laughter beneath breath. And sighs of contentment. The bath is not just for cleansing the body. It is a ritual of respect. The oil rubbed into backs by a friend's hands. The gentle scraping of the strigil. Removing the day with care. Outside the door, sandals are neatly left in pairs. Inside, the floor is warm. The room smells of olive, crushed bay leaves, and earth. It's quiet here, except for water dripping slowly from one stone basin to another. An elder helps a boy tie his kite in again. The boy bows slightly in thanks. It's a moment. But it lingers. Clean, oiled, and slowed, the bathers emerge into the cool night, lighter than before. Not far from the bathhouse, a few lamps glow in a private courtyard. This is the setting for the symposium. Not a party. Not a feast. But a conversation. The host has laid out low couches. The table is modest. Bowls of olives. Sliced dates. A clay pitcher of diluted wine. There is no rush to begin. No clinking of plates. No roaring laughter. Only slow arrivals. Warm greetings. And soft music drifting from a lyre resting on someone's lap. The men recline. Some remove their sandals. The evening is for sharing. Stories. Songs. ideas. A guest takes up the lyre. He does not tune it with ceremony. He simply plucks a few notes, then a few more, until the melody finds him. The others fall still. One closes his eyes. Another watches the stars. The music is not grand. It is a lullaby for grown men, a gentle descent. The singer's voice is low, almost a whisper. He sings of the sea, of fishermen, of a bird that followed a ship for 3 days. The others nod. They've heard it before, but tonight, it feels new. That is the beauty of the symposium. Same wine, same stories, but never quite the same moment. Later, the conversation begins. Not loudly, not all at once. It begins the way water fills a shallow bowl, slowly, gently, with ripples. One man speaks of a dream he had, about a lion who wept. Another recalls a saying from an old teacher. Another answers with a joke, but quietly, so that it feels like silk, not brass. There are pauses. There is space. No one interrupts. No one needs to win. A cup is passed, filled, passed again. And still, the stars listen. At the edge of the group, an older man sits with a tablet on his knees. He writes nothing, just runs his fingers over the wax, thinking. He is a student of Plato, or perhaps of no one. He listens more than he speaks. When he speaks, it is soft and slow. Is rest, he asks, a kind of knowledge? The others smile. Not because it's clever, but because it is true. In Greek thought, leisure is not wasted. It is sacred. It is the soil from which wisdom grows. To rest is to make space for the soul. The symposium ends not with applause, but with a breeze. The guests rise, slowly. Their footsteps are soft. The night has deepened. Some walk in pairs, others alone. The streets of the village are quiet. Oil lamps flicker on doorways. The sky is thick with stars. One man stops by a fig tree. He touches its leaves. Another man sings a single line of the song from earlier. Then nothing more. And just like that, the night returns to itself. Still. Silent. Sacred. In the women's quarters of the home, the night unfolds more softly still. A single oil lamp glows near the loom. Its flame dances like a slow breath. A mother sits beside it, her hands busy with wool. She is not working with haste. She is finishing a row. Then another. The rhythm is calming, like a lullaby for her own hands. A child sits nearby, humming to herself, tapping two little stones together, making a quiet game out of time. The loom creaks. The lamp hums. Outside, a night bird sings. There is no rush to bed. Only the slow winding down of a day well lived. In the courtyard, before sleep comes fully, children play a quiet game. It is called a paraxis, a simple bouncing game with a ball. They take turns, counting softly in rhythm. 1, 2, 3. The older ones play ephedrismos, tossing stones at a larger rock, trying to knock it over. Whoever misses must carry the other on their back. There is laughter, but muffled, respectful of the hour. Even in play, there is balance. The night is cool. Their feet are bare. The stones are smooth. The game will end soon. But the memory of these nights will stretch across their lives, like soft footprints on clay. Now the house is dim. The games are done. The child curls beneath a light-woven blanket. A mother begins to hum. It is not a song with words, just a tune passed down. Her mother sang it to her. And her mother before that. The melody rises and falls like the hills outside. Like the waves that lap the shore. Like the wind in the olive trees. The child's eyes close. But the mother keeps singing. A little while longer. She is not singing to the child alone. But to the house. To the quiet. To the night itself. In a quieter home, further from the city's edge, a man sits alone at a wooden table. He is a scribe. Not wealthy. But careful. By the light of 2 lamps, he copies a passage from a play. Not for money. For love. He pauses to dip his stylus in ink. He scratches a correction. Then closes his eyes to remember the next line. The room is still. Scrolls line the shelf. A cat sleeps near his feet. When he finally sets the stylus down, his body sighs. His mind is full. But quiet. He has written enough for one night. Elsewhere, a poet lies awake. Not from worry, but from wonder. The poem came to him earlier. During the evening bath. He whispered the lines to himself, as he dried his arms. Now, lying beneath a thin linen sheet, he recites them again in his mind. The stars above are silent. The breeze lifts the edge of the curtain. He feels the shape of the stanza forming, but does not rise to write it. It will still be there in the morning. And if it isn't, that, too, is part of the poem. He closes his eyes. And the rhythm continues. Inside. To the Greeks, sleep was not just rest. It was a visit. A journey to another realm. The god Hypnos was gentle. He came on quiet feet. He touched the forehead. And the world slowed. Even mighty Zeus. Even restless Hermes. Even the warriors of Sparta. All bowed to sleep. In temples, priests recorded dreams. As messages from the divine. In homes, mothers whispered a prayer. Before sleep. May Hypnos hold you. And Morpheus show you beauty. And so, they drifted. Not into nothingness. But into something. Rich. Soft. And sacred. And now, the city rests. From the smallest hut. To the tallest temple. Lamps are low. Gates are shut. Voices fade to memory. Only the breeze remains. Moving softly through fig trees. Across rooftops. Through doorways left ajar. A guard leans against a wall. His eyes half closed. A dog lifts its head. Then sleeps again. Even the stars seem to dim. The ancient world, so full of motion by day, has yielded to something deeper. Something slower. Something sacred. Sleep. Far from the city streets. On a gentle hillside among cypress trees. Stood a sacred place known to many. The Aesculapion. A temple of healing. And sleep. Pilgrims came quietly. Not with shouts or banners. But with tired hearts. They came to rest. To dream. And perhaps, to heal. Before entering, they bathed. Anointed their feet with oil. Laid down their burdens. In the care of the god Asclepius. Whose serpent staff stood carved in stone. They slept on woven mats. Not alone, but not disturbed. And in sleep, they hoped for a vision. A message. A sign. A dream that would show them what the waking world could not. The dreams in the Aesculapion were gentle. Symbolic. Whispered. A stream flowing backward. A bird nesting in the palm. A god offering bread. In the morning, the temple priest would listen. No judgment. No rush. Together, they would find the meaning. Not just for the body, but for the spirit. Healing, for the Greeks, was not just a matter of verbs and hands, but of sleep. Of peace. Of letting the gods speak, in the language of night. Back in the villages, the morning after a good night's rest was slow. Not sluggish, not heavy, just unhurried. Doors opened to the chirp of sparrows. Bread was broken quietly. Faces were washed in cold water, without complaint. The potter hummed as he checked his kiln. The shepherd yawned as he tied his sandals. The woman at the loom stretched her arms and smiled at the threads she'd left waiting. A rested people moves like a soft river. No splash, no rush. The Greeks knew this. They honored it. To rise slowly was not laziness, but wisdom. Even the great philosophers spoke of leisure not as waste, but as purpose. Aristotle once said that leisure is the basis of culture. Plato believed that a life of constant motion left no room for the soul to breathe. So the thinkers of Greece, in gardens, in courtyards, under fig trees, taught that true learning comes not in frenzy, but in stillness. They taught their students to sit with silence, to sip wine slowly, to look at stars, not for navigation, but for wonder. As the sun sets again, and another night arrives, the moon rises over rooftops and olive trees. She has watched the Greeks through thousands of evenings. Watched them dance slowly in the torchlight. Watched them sleep in courtyards, or beneath fig trees, or on the decks of quiet ships. She has seen the same breath, the same laughter, the same dreaming eyes, generation after generation. She sees you now, too. Listening, breathing, beginning to let go. And still, she shines. And now, your journey into the ancient world has come to its quiet end. You have walked their streets, heard their music, bathed in their waters, dreamed in their temples. You have shared their leisure, not in grand feasts or fierce debates, but in the little things. A song, a sigh, a silence. The Greeks lived fully, but they also knew when to pause, when to rest, when to let the soul stretch its limbs in the soft dark of night. And now it is your turn. Close your eyes. Breathe softly. Let the stories fade into silence. Let the echoes of lyres and laughter carry you gently into your own ancient dreams. In the peaceful countryside of ancient Greece, the mornings arrived not with alarm, but with light. Soft golden beams spilled over the hills, and slipped gently into stone homes, through wooden shutters and woven curtains. There were no clocks, no shrill beeps, only the sound of doves calling, and roosters waking with calm declarations. Life stirred gradually, like olive leaves in the breeze. Inside a typical home, the hearth was already warm. Embers had been banked from the night before. A woman knelt to stir the coals, adding a handful of twigs, as the flames flickered back to life. Breakfast was simple: a bit of barley bread, some olives, a few dried figs soaked in water, to make them soft again. Children stretched and yawned. Men wrapped themselves in chittens, and stepped outside into the soft light, carrying baskets or clay jugs, for water or milk. After breakfast, many Greeks enjoyed a slow morning walk. Some went to the wellspring, where the water trickled from limestone cliffs, cool and ancient. Others wandered the fields, not to labor, but to feel the earth underfoot, to greet a neighbor, or to smell the wild thyme, growing at the edge of the hills. Elders walked slowly, staffs in hand, not for exercise, but for presence. Even children followed, gathering herbs, chasing butterflies, or simply listening to the breeze, playing through the fig trees. Herb gatherers were often wise women. They walked alone or in pairs, carrying woven baskets, and humming old songs. They knew where to find marjoram, sage, fennel, and mint. They would kneel beside the plants, speak to them softly, pluck only what was needed, and leave offerings: a pebble, a whisper, a prayer. In the hills, the air smelled of rosemary and sea breeze. And sometimes, you could hear the distant sound of sheep bells, as a shepherd guided his flock to a nearby spring. In the town square or outside the agora, friends would gather in the shade of a fig tree or under the portico. They didn't rush. They didn't shout. They simply sat, legs stretched, backs leaned against stone columns, talking of the weather, of stories heard, of a dream remembered. Old men with beards chewed bits of pine resin or fennel root. Young women braided each other's hair, or watched their children play in the dust, with handmade dolls or wooden animals. Not all leisure was passive. Some came through rhythm, the slow, steady flow of walking the hills, with goats or sheep. A herder might spend the day, moving gently between slopes, watching the clouds drift over Mount Hymettus, and playing a reed flute, while the animals grazed nearby. It was not glamorous, but it was deeply quiet. And in that quiet, many found clarity. They returned home, not with riches, but with peace. When the sun reached its peak, most people found a shaded spot, and rested. Figs were peeled slowly. Grapes were shared. Cool water from terracotta jugs was poured carefully into hand-shaped bowls. This was not a time to rush, but to pause. A midday breeze rustled through vines, and the scent of sage trees mixed with the salt of the far-off sea. Even the bees seemed slower. Some returned to their homes, to engage in peaceful work. Weaving, carving, repairing nets, mending baskets. These tasks were not rushed. They were part of the rhythm. Soft repetition, gentle motion, a kind of moving meditation. Old stories were told. Sometimes a small child would sit nearby, watching and learning, not just the technique, but the calm that came with it. As the afternoon light softened, some wandered back to the hills, to sit beneath a tree, or near a small stream. Others walked the worn path, to visit an old friend. They didn't knock. They simply appeared, and were welcomed. The Greeks valued presence, not in quantity, but in quiet quality. To sit with someone in silence was a form of affection. To the Greeks, leisure was not idle time. It was sacred. The space to breathe, to connect, to listen to birds, and think of nothing in particular. In these hours, philosophers dreamed. Children laughed softly. And the earth turned, without effort. They knew something we are still trying to remember. That to rest is to live. As evening crept near again, the villagers made their way home. Not tired, but complete. The day had been filled, not with noise or urgency, but with little things, done fully, and with care. A final figure, a final story, a cool splash of water on the face and feet. And then, as stars appeared in the lavender sky, they drifted into sleep, just as gently as they had awakened. In a quiet courtyard tucked behind sun-washed stone walls, a painter knelt beside a low wooden bench. The light was perfect, not too bright, not too dim. The time of day when shadows softened, and the world felt still. He was in no rush. A small jar of ochre sat by his side, mixed from earth, crushed shells, and a little water drawn from a cool basin nearby. Next to it, a bowl of charcoal dust, stirred into a deep black ink. His brush was made from horsehair, tied gently to a reed. Delicate, quiet. He worked on a clay amphora, its rounded belly resting between cloths, slowly painting a scene of dancers in a grove. Not warriors or gods, but people like himself, sharing wine beneath the moon. His wife sat nearby, shelling peas into a bowl. She did not speak. She knew this was his dreaming time. Each stroke of his brush was like a breath. Slow, curved, steady. He would pause often, not to judge, but to see. The way a line curled like a vine. The way the negative space hummed. The way quiet could be held, in the crook of a dancer's arm. Sometimes a cat wandered into the courtyard, curling up by the corner column. Sometimes a neighbor would pass by, see the painter at work, and simply raise a hand in greeting. Wordless, content. Art was not hurried. Not in this place. It moved with the soul. At the other side of the village, young apprentices sat cross-legged, on woven mats in the shade of a fig tree. Each one held a small clay tablet. Each was copying, slowly, the curls of a vine, the pattern of a meander, the flutter of a tunic. Their teacher, an old painter named Thales, spoke little. He simply watched. When one child grew frustrated, he placed a hand on her shoulder, and said only, "Let the hand follow the breath. Let the breath follow the stillness." And she tried again, this time softer. A bee buzzed lazily past. The smell of crushed lavender rose from the warm stone path. In the distance, someone played a reed pipe. In a wealthier home, a mural was being painted on a cool interior wall. But not for glory. Not to impress. It was a gift. For a grandmother who liked birds. And so, the painter filled the wall with soft wings. Doves in flight. Finches nesting. A heron by a riverbank. All painted in light colors, soft as mist. The grandmother sat watching, her eyes closed, a cup of honeyed wine in her hand. She smiled. "Now," she said, "my dreams will have wings." And the painter nodded, still adding feathers, with the gentleness of someone writing a lullaby on stone. In ancient Greece, art wasn't a performance. It was part of the day. Like kneading bread. Like brushing a child's hair. Like watching the wind move the sea. It lived in every corner. The stitch of a tunic's border. The etching on a cup. The mosaic near a door that showed dolphins leaping. Artists were not kings. They were listeners. To silence. To shape. To the slow unfolding of a world that wanted to be seen gently. And through their quiet leisure, they helped the world remember how beautiful it already was. As the sun lowered toward the western hills, a young man sat beneath an old olive tree, his lyre resting across his knees. He tuned its 7 strings carefully, plucking each with fingers dipped in olive oil, to soften the sound. He didn't play to perform. He played because it was evening. Because the light was golden. Because the breeze through the branches sounded like a song half remembered. The music was simple. Just a few notes, falling like petals onto the stones. In a nearby clearing, a few families gathered as they often did. Blankets were spread on the earth. Loaves of bread wrapped in cloth were unwrapped. A pitcher of wine was passed from hand to hand. No one called it a concert. It was just what they did. Children sat on laps. Old men leaned on elbows. The lyre's music reached them, like the smell of fresh thyme. And when the music paused, a voice rose from the group. An old woman named Arithia, who had once danced in the spring games. Her voice cracked, but no one minded. She began to sing, a song she had known since before she had gray in her hair. Further up the hill, stone seats had been carved long ago into the slope. A place they called Theatron, the scene place. There was no roof, no curtain, just the earth, the sky, and the people. At twilight, a young boy walked down with a flute, followed by a girl holding a scroll. They were not professionals. They were just brave. She read slowly, a tale of love and longing from Sappho's fragments. He played notes between the words, soft and small, like the sound of someone remembering. And the audience, dozens of neighbors and friends, watched not with applause, but with stillness. After the poem faded, another stepped forward, an older man in a blue amation, with a lantern in one hand, and a voice like quiet rain. He was a mythologos, a teller of tales. No mask, no stage, just words. He told of Persephone in the underworld, but he told it softly, not with fire and fear, but with calm, as if the gods themselves were quiet tonight. And as he spoke, the audience felt the grass beneath their feet, and the hush of the earth turning slowly toward sleep. When the tales ended, the people did not rush home. They stayed. Some stared at the stars. Others stretched out on their backs, arms folded behind their heads, listening to the crickets and the wind. A boy whispered, "I liked the part where the goddess wept." And his mother nodded, brushing a curl from his forehead. Someone passed around a basket of dates. Another poured the last of the wine into a wide, shallow bowl. The fire burned low. The night deepened. And the music of rest settled into every breath. Long after most had gone, just a few remained. Two sisters, lying side by side. A shepherd boy curled under his cloak. The storyteller himself, watching the smoke rise into the sky. And above them, the stars, the same stars they had watched. Every poem, every whisper, every lyre song, since the very first fire was lit. The Greeks believed that even the gods rested sometimes. And on such nights, with gentle stories floating into the dark, perhaps they did. Just outside the city of Athens, past the last olive grove, and beyond the quiet road, there was a garden. Not a garden of roses or fountains, but of gravel paths, shaded fig trees, and silence. This was the garden of Epicurus, a place where those weary of noise came to think, and not think. Benches made from old wood circled a central figure. Pebbles crackled softly under sandals. A low wall held back the wild herbs, but thyme and mint still crept over the edges. Here, philosophers met. Not to argue, but to sit. Epicurus himself was said to speak slowly, never with a raised voice. Never to conquer an idea, but to hold it, like water in the palm. He spoke of tranquility, of ataraxia, a mind unshaken. You need not have riches, he said, if you have shade and a friend. And so they spoke, not of gods, or war, or glory. They spoke of bread, and rest, and what made the heart still. Someone once asked, is not death a terror? Epicurus only smiled. He looked at the swaying fig leaves, and said, no more than sleep. At the other end of the garden, a young scribe slowly copied a scroll. He dipped his stylus into ink made from soot and vinegar, and let each word stretch softly across the parchment. He didn't rush. The pace of copying was meditative. Each word entered his hand, then the reed, then the page. It was a work by Anaxagoras, about the moon's light, and how stars may be other suns. The boy's mind wandered, but not away. He thought about the night sky, and when he looked up, he saw the first star of the evening, beginning to blink. Some came to the garden not to speak, but to walk. There was a path, worn smooth by years of sandals, curving softly past thyme bushes and laurel trees. Philosophers walked in circles there, not debating, but unraveling thoughts, like tangled threads. One man whispered a verse with each step. Another counted his breaths. A woman walked silently, a folded letter clutched in her hand, her sandals brushing dust that had settled from the stars. No one interrupted. This was thinking through the body. Leisure as a rhythm. Steps instead of arguments. As the night grew deep, and even the insects had hushed, some would stay behind in the grove. A low oil lamp burned beside a stone, casting golden pools onto the ground. A few students sat in silence, watching the smoke from their teacher's incense curl upward toward the stars. They weren't looking for answers. Just quiet. A feeling. A hush beneath the cosmos. One boy whispered, "If the world ends, will it start again?" The teacher only smiled, and pointed up. "There is always another morning." And the boy rested his head against the base of a tree, and dreamed of sunrises. In the world of the Greeks, leisure was not laziness. It was sacred. It was the soul turning gently inward, toward itself. In the garden, in the theater, by the painter's bench, or in the quiet field, the Greeks found rest, not only for the body, but for the spirit. They did not hurry through time. They lived with it. In slow hours. In shared stories. In thoughtful walks. And so tonight, as your eyes grow heavy, and the stars outside your window begin to blink, may your dreams be filled with olive groves, warm laughter, and the hush of an ancient world that knew how to rest. As the last golden rays slipped behind the hills, the streets of Athens grew quiet. The market stalls were empty, and the laughter of children playing in the afternoon faded like a soft song. Families gathered inside their homes, doors left open to welcome the cool evening air. Inside small homes, oil lamps were lit, casting gentle glows on clay walls. Mothers folded woolen cloths, and fathers told quiet stories to sleepy children. Outside, the breeze rustled olive leaves softly, carrying the scent of herbs and earth. The city's noise had turned to whispers, and the stars came out one by one. The cicadas had fallen silent, and only the faint sound of the sea in the distance remained. In their beds of straw and linen, the Greeks closed their eyes, carried away by gentle dreams of gods, gardens, and golden days. And now, dear friend, it's time for you to rest as well. Let your breath slow. Feel your body soften. Let the gentle stories of an ancient world carry you quietly to sleep. May your dreams be calm, and your heart light. Good night.